Somebody go do this again.
Call meeting to order. Item number 2, approval of minutes of April 9, 2012, April 23, 2012, May 7, 2012, and May 8, 2012. There's no objections or urges. The council chair shall approve the same as written. Item 3, approval of warrants. Suggested motion move to approve and sign warrants number 58 through 64A in the amount of $638,727.90.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Chairman's comments, if have none. Monthly reports. Dave? That's all? Mike?
Nothing.
Kurt? Kurt? Good.
No.
Item 6, open forum. This is the portion of the agenda where the public can speak to any items on the agenda that do not have a public hearing. Please stand and state your name before stating the nature of your business. Start in the back row.
Darrell Savage from the Legion. I came up in case there was any questions on the parade and the licenses for the Vino and thanks to the Legion Hall. Thank you.
Anybody else in the back row? Next row. Front row. Side of the room. Shelley.
Just to let the councilors know, in front of you this evening, you do have a presentation that was provided by our guest speaker. That would be the superintendent, Ms. Hamlin. You also have an addendum which was added to the agenda today, and that will entail an executive session at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Dave? Mike? Kurt?
Yeah. Bill, just curious if you've done any on the joiner situation on the Mohawk Road. With the neighbors there that are doing.
I've had no meetings with anybody other than Daryl.
Yeah, so there's been no issue since, or
Not that I'm aware of.
have our officers been down there or anything?
Not recently. I think they were called down there maybe a week or so ago, but not over the past weekend or later in the week.
So it's kind of calmed down right now?
As far as I'm aware of, unless Daryl wants to address this in any fashion, but I know I left it with Daryl if he wanted me involved with this or with the joiners to let me know. I'd be happy to do that. I haven't heard since.
It's okay.
So I'm assuming right now it's not an issue.
Okay, because I know it was getting out of hand here, and I'm just curious if, okay. Yep.
Item number 7, special acknowledgements. There are none. Item 8, guest speaker Denise Hamlin, RSU number 67, superintendent.
Good evening, thank you for having me. I know that you have a very large agenda, so I'll try not to take up too much of your time. What I did was I just printed a copy of the PowerPoint that I would have, given more time, I would have been able to show to you. So I think what I'll do is I'll just go down through it. And this is a copy of the PowerPoint that I did for the school board a couple of weeks ago. The end slides were really specifically related to Lincoln and where you are with the evaluation piece, where we are with subsidy. So, I mean, as you can see, I know you've seen the charts that one of them was posted in the Lincoln News with a brief letter. So you're really looking at your instructional costs being almost 43% of your budget, your special ed costs just under 12%. And if you look at special education, that's one of those things that we don't really have a choice over. It's mandated by IDEA as well as a Chapter 101. It's based on student need, based on student disability, and as a system, we're obligated to provide those services. So we look to provide the services that students need in a fiscally responsible way. Further on in this agenda, you'll see that in the past we have contracted services for speech therapy and social worker services. Next year, those will become full-time positions. We can actually receive a larger span of services for about the same price. They will just become our employees. So that's, one of the things that we were looking at. You are looking at vocational education, that's 9 through 12, and that's just under $600,000 in the budget. Region 3 assessment, that's based on our student population and the number of students that attend. Other instruction, that's all your extracurricular, and as you can see, it's about 3%, a little more than 3% of your budget. Student staff support, your librarians, guidance counselors, nurse, technology, curriculum, all of that is wrapped into the student and staff support. District administration, that's the portion of the budget that maintains the central office staff, secretary, superintendent, the board, auditing fees, insurance, things like that. Your next slide is school administration, and that is your building principals, your secretaries in the building, the benefits, and all of the things related specifically to the building as far as fixed costs. Transportation is your busing. Student transportation, some of this does include special education transportation for those students who are required to have that service back and forth to school. Transportation also includes our trucks, our snow plowing, and all of those things that are related to maintaining the facilities as well as providing buses. So anything that you see that has wheels is part of the transportation budget. That does also include the maintenance and repair of our bus and the bus garage. And as you know, that we do recoup some costs by doing the mechanic work on surrounding system for buses for other school districts. So that's been helpful. Maintenance is your general building maintenance, your janitors, your building and grounds crew, facilities manager, anything that's relating to maintaining the building. Heating, fuel. We do have some changes for 2013. We have a loss of EdJob funds. We saw our last round of AIR funds last year. We did receive a small allocation of $1,900 this year. I'm sure that will go right into a books or supply line. Our NCLB funding, as we look across the last 5-year span, we have lost approximately 10%. Last year, our NCLB grant was about $500,000. Some of that is for Title IIA, which is professional development. Some of it is Title VI, which funds after-school activities, and the rest funds our interventions for our students who are not making gains as adequately as they require. So those are all losses in federal funds. The services are still required, whether the federal government or the state funds it or not. So when you look across the state share, currently the state is funding 42% of the requirement of 55%. That came into effect with LD1 in 2005. And as the state share goes down, the local share goes up. Increases, we've had a 4% increase in health insurance, and for this district, that's about $250,000. We have the 5-year trend for health insurance increases have been about 16.5%, and as you know, we have collective bargaining agreements that right now we're working, some staff, we're at 80-20, so the district share is 80%. Say if a family plan is around $15,000. For those employees that choose that plan. We are trying to work through that with our collective bargaining, but as you know, once a benefit is, it's hard to negotiate out. So, and that is for all of our staff. They have that in the collective bargaining agreement, that they're eligible from anywhere from a single subscriber plan to a family plan. Our staffing plan, we do have some changes in staffing for this year. We have our art, music, PE at Ella Burr. As any of you have been reading, we did have an assessment of instructional time for students, and our system-wide, our teachers teach about 1,385 minutes approximately, some higher, some a little lower, depending on the content area they're teaching. The 3 content areas we're teaching about 680 minutes a week. So there is a change in the contract for those individuals, but the instructional time for students has not changed. So all of those servers are still in place. We're just doing it with half-time contracts rather than paying a full-time contract. We do have a 9/12 cut at the high school, and that is a financial literacy, a yearbook, and a newspaper. The yearbook and the newspaper were stipend positions, which any staff member could pick up, and those will go back to on Schedule B of the collective bargaining contract. The financial literacy that was taught in that class will become part of the math, the language arts, and the economics curriculum as we move into the new Common Core standards that the state adopted last year. So that position was underserving our population and is really incorporated into the other. So that was another cut. Again, contracted speech. We were contracting library services for the school, Metanuck Academy, to maintain their NEASC accreditation, which is their state accreditation. We're required to have a full-time librarian. We have not had one for a couple of years, and we have contracted that service. This year, we will move to hire a full-time librarian in that realm. So again, that's a NEASC requirement to maintain our accreditation. The social worker services, we had 0.6 of social worker service. That will move to a full-time social worker service. We will, the MASH unit at Metanuck Academy has been funded through Help Access on a $45,000 grant. Last year, the grant was filed late, and Help Access lost $45,000 to maintain the MASH clinic. As a commitment, the board and administration felt that they wanted to maintain those medical, social worker, and dental services for students. So that is a $45,000 increase as we make up the difference for the lost grant. And that way students will not see any change in services for the school-based health center. Another one is the elementary school. It's the school that has the largest population. It does not have an assistant principal. We also need an NCLB coordinator to run our NCLB grant, maintain the federal compliance with that. If in fact we're audited, we will be paying back that $500,000, and we don't want to do that. We had a staff member a year ago that did manage that grant. That employee was no longer with us. We parted it out. We tried to put it on the plates of the administration, and it becomes a limit to what they can accomplish in the course of the day. So that position will be funded half with the grant, the federal grant, and the other half out of the general budget. Again, that is the largest population of students and the youngest. We'll also be looking at changing the way we do our professional development. Last year, the district paid just under $300,000 in substitute pay, and the majority of that pay was not teachers taking a field day, it was professional development activities. So when we ask staff to leave their classroom to go to participate in professional development, we hire a substitute. One of the problems with that is, one, we're paying the staff member twice. We're not getting the adequate service that we need. And we're also looking at a $94,000 NCLB grant that will fund this position. We have paid outside providers to come in and provide staff development. We will change that this year, just like we do for children. We will be differentiating professional development for teachers. So that is another change. If you flip down through to student enrollment, you can look at the enrollment trends. Our population is declining. We have 1,134 students. In 2007, we had 1,287, and the difference in that is about just over $1 million in subsidy that. We still have our buildings, we still have our classrooms, we don't have the subsidy. So again, that falls back onto the local community to change that. You do have the revenue side of the budget. When we look at our state subsidy, we had $6,250,185 this year in state subsidy. In order to receive that state subsidy, The local share that the community must raise is $3,162,000. We do have an additional over and under EPS. This district has typically run about 1.4 to 1.7 over the EPS funding formula, and that funding formula is based on a model of 2,500 students. So to maintain your programs, the local additional has run around that component. In 2011, we were 21% over EPS funding. Last year, we moved the budget to 15% EPS funding, and this year, we're staying right at 15% over EPS funding. Again, we have tuition costs where students come to us. The state sets the rate for high school and elementary school tuition. We do have 4 bus loans right now. We will pay off 2 of them this year. We did not purchase an additional bus this year, but we will for next year once we pay those off. We do have a maintenance bond of $65,850.32. We'll pay the one payment in 2012-13, one in 2013-14, and that will pay off that. Our buses are subsidized by the state, so we are pretty close to being debt-free. Per pupil operating costs, that's dictated, Department of Education calculates that for us. We have our elementary operating costs for 2010-11, again, they're running a year behind on their data, was $7,861 is what the state says it costs for us to operate our schools, and they set our tuition rate at $6,484. So we pay out just over $7,000, and we bring in under $7,000. Same thing for high school. They set our tuition rate at $11,815, and our tuition rate is $8,838. So there is a discrepancy between what it costs you to actually operate your schools and what the state allows you to take in for tuition. You do have cost per day. We can go through that. You can see that it runs pretty straightforward for the last 5 years, right around $70,000 a day, and that's based on 175 mandated student days. You have the allocation differences. These are the differences for the towns. The next page is Lincoln's valuation, and as you can see, over a 6-year period, your valuation has increased significantly. Percentage-wise, it's about 42%, and it's about $76 million in valuation. As valuation is going up, student enrollment is going down. Over again, 5-year trend. We have 77 fewer students in Lincoln, which is about $500,000 actual subsidy for this town alone. EPS funding formula rate, that's the rate that the Department of Education pays, based on how much money they need. So Lincoln's foundation for this year is up about $14,000. And then you can go to the over and under EPS, and we're looking at the overall $59,000 for the town, the K-12 budget, and then your adult education budget. You do have a little bit of jump in that again because of the health insurance. So I know I went through that fast, and I know it's a lot of information, so if anyone needs clarification on anything, feel free to call me, come into the office. I just got the website up and running, so I'm starting to post all of this information online so you can access it online. You know, have a cup of coffee for your morning and read through it, and have a snack at night, and you can't sleep, read through it. So, anyway, I mean, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I do. Going back to the revenue side. Medicaid reimbursement, I noticed that you've actually only received $50,000 in that between 09 and 10.
Yes.
And I know that there was a change from Health Human Services on some of the policies that they put through, but that's being changed in the new bill. There's quite a few, there's a lot of dollars that can be reimbursed if you properly do that.
And we do have a billing agent, and we paid last year $10,000 to the billing agent and recouped about $12,000.
Is that MSB?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. And one of the problems that I think that we're facing is the Department of Education is trying to find a way for either multi-purpose private schools, or they're going to bundle the rate. See, prior to, school systems had a bundled rate. Basically, if you
Can't
guys...
do that anymore.
No. So, they're trying to look at a way for the federal government, for the school system to bill the feds directly, and then they'll reduce your subsidy by what you take in. So, when you look at the work it takes for you to bill for those services, if you're going to lose it on the other end for state subsidy, you're actually paying for funds that the state would have to give you anyway. There's still a lot of work that they're doing, and that's just one of the issues that they're coming up against. And that's the LD 1003,
Right.
the bill for main care. With any hope, we're hoping that, I mean, it's $34 million lost. Right now, we're probably recouping statewide about 10.
It's 9, actually,
Is it
about
9?
9.5.
Yeah.
There's actually a working group that's working on that. The superintendent in Brewer is on that committee. You might want to talk to him and see how that's going.
Yep.
Because they're supposed to be putting that together.
Yeah, he's part of our superintendent's group.
Right.
And he does a report, a monthly report.
Because I think that we're missing the boat on that. There's a chance for you to pick up a lot of money there.
Well, there is, and as soon as they get that piece of legislation worked through, I think it is. I mean, when we're looking at a regional day treatment program to use for the Mattawampeg building, so that regional superintendents, rather than sending their children to Bangor or elsewhere for those medically necessary services, for mental health programs and things, that for us to keep the children here in the community and then bill out through that day treatment program. So we're trying.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Suggested motion: move to approve the suggested motions for items number 12 through 33 as presented.
Something?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Item 10A, public hearing, municipal code 1802 cemetery ordinance. Suggested motion: move to open the public hearing for the purpose of hearing oral and written comments on the proposed amendment to the municipal code 1802 cemetery ordinance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 7-0. This is a public hearing on the cemetery ordinance. Any comments? Council? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Item 10B, amendments, municipal code 1802, cemetery ordinance. Suggested motion: move to amend the municipal code by amending the municipal code 1802 cemetery ordinance as attached. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Item 11A, public hearing, comprehensive plan. Suggested motion: move to open a public hearing for the purpose of hearing oral and written comments on the adoption of the comprehensive plan dated March 28, 2012. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 7-0. This is a public hearing on the comprehensive plan. Do any comments? Council? Mike?
The only thing I've got to say on that is we just received that last week. There's a lot of reading there. So, but the only thing I can say, I haven't fully read it yet, so it's going to be tough for me. That's all I've got.
Just ask Ruth, anything in there that you see that we should be concerned about?
That is the same plan that was provided over a year ago.
Right.
The only difference was the muckets that were mentioned in my weekly reports, that we didn't have the Tidewater muckets. I don't see any concerns with that plan whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the letter from the state planning office said it was one of the best, most comprehensive reports he's read. Well, I'll take it.
Anything else from the council? Close the public hearing. Item 11B, adoption of the comprehensive plan. Suggested motion move to adopt the comprehensive plan dated March 28, 2012 as written.
Motion. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Item 34, appropriate transfer to cover over expenditures in fiscal year 12 budget. Suggested motion move to appropriate a transfer totaling $34,510 from unassigned fund balance to various departments as outlined below to cover over expenditures in the fiscal year 12 budget.
Move to appropriate.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Eric?
Chief Dawson, I do have reservations about this $5,000 request for wages. If we were to go back 2 years, back to fiscal year 2010, and include what was approved by the council over the last 2 years and add this $5,000, we're looking at $21,000 in total that has been requested and approved in overages by the fire department alone. So my question is this something we can expect every year?
No, what happened this year, for instance, working backwards, we had an engineer leave the position, and we wound up paying overtime position, or filling overtime shifts for approximately 9 weeks, I think it was. We had 3 engineers that were out on sick leave with a total of 17 weeks that needed to be filled with overtime. Plus, we had a payout of that engineer of over $3,000. Last year, we had a similar issue with another engineer that left for another position, and we had his payout to do, plus we had to pay the overtime for 13 weeks, I think it was, 18 weeks. So, you know, those are unanticipated expenditures that was no way for us to budget for. And in 2010, or FY10, that $9,000, that was the year we had a lot of large fires and time or labor-intensive type fires that ate up our biggest, well, we over-exceeded our College Fire Department budget, plus the overtime budget for the engineers to cover to drive trucks for those fires. Put the budget over. So those are unanticipated things. We have a best guess scenario for the mutual aid on that same year of FY10. That was over budget by, well, we normally budget $1,500, and we had a $5,000 $5,000 bill basically minus the $1,500. So whatever the balance of that is, about $3,000 something. Those are unanticipated. There's nothing, I don't know what we can do to change it. You know, I do have an idea to try to reduce some overtime expenditures going forward, but I have no way to tell whether or not we're going to need it. But for instance, the police has in their contract that if they have people that are out for more than 50 hours, they have to fill it with their full-time people first, and then they can resort to the reserves to fill the overtime shifts versus going into the engineers. What we would ask is similar language that would more likely be about 48 hours, because that's a cycle, with similar language basically, to try to stem that back. What we then have to do is develop a spare engineer program. We really don't have one, but I do have one engineer that I can count on, and another one in a pinch for a tanker.
Okay, so what we're talking about then is you working with your current employees, working with the current engineers, rewording the language in the contract?
I had mentioned it to the union leadership in regards to writing which their next contract isn't available for the next, until 2 years from now. So, hopefully, number one, we'll remember that at that time, and we'll try to do that, but it's also going to be a point of negotiation.
Okay. When your final budget is approved, annually, the budget that you submit to the council, is there any, when you notice that your overtime, that your personnel expenditures are getting dangerously close to you reaching the end of that line item in your budget, are there other accounts you can freeze in order to offset the overage that you're going to, I mean, you said that this is, we're talking about the last 3 years, it's things that are beyond your control, so we don't know what's going to happen next year, but is there some plan that you have that you can freeze some aspects of your budget so it can offset the overages in the personnel?
Well, by a certain point in time when we realize we're going to be down for it, yes, we can start trimming back, but we have to also remember that we still have a department to run that has needs, and that's why we have those line item budgets. So, in some respects, yeah, we might be able to try to put it off to next year, and we might not. It's hard to answer that, but we do try to make reductions in expenditures in certain items that maybe are not as necessary, and in an out-and-out elimination, maybe, or not elimination, but freezing it out. We do have a few levels, but everything we got is pretty much is why we budget for it, because we have its needs. We do the best we can right now, but for this year, by the time we get done, I think we think we're going to be able to save about $8,000. But that's cutting out a lot of other stuff that we had budgeted to utilize that money for. And on the same account, on the other side of that coin, there are some things our best guess. For instance, fuel. We're under budget by quite a bit right now. I think we have $1,300 left. We anticipate maybe spending $500, maybe $600 of that, and then saving the rest. And it doesn't look like fuel's going to spike right now, so I think we're going to be able to make it. But things like that, yes, we can make savings.
Okay. Well, I would encourage in the future that we try to make as many savings.
We do that. We do try to make reductions, but there are some things that we have to run the business, which is the fire department. And I consult with the town manager on a regular basis about our status.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Item 35A, discussion on trash compactor. We had a motion table last month, right?
Yes, and the 35B is your actual vote. We listed it as A and B so that if the council would like to entertain discussion or ask David any questions, that could happen before a motion was on the floor. So this would be the motion revisited that was tabled.
Any discussion?
I do have a question for David. If this is awarded, from the time it's awarded, the compactor has to be built, correct?
Correct.
And how long does that take?
12 to 14 weeks before we see it sitting in the yard at the transfer station.
And how long after it's sitting in the yard is it sitting under the hopper and working?
The contractor told me 4 days.
So we shut the transfer station down for 4 days?
We'll shut it down for 3 days and incorporate a Thursday, which is the day we're normally closed, into that 4 days.
And then we're up and running.
That's what he tells me.
Do they stick around, like on Friday, to make sure everything?
They'll stay here half a day just to make sure the system is working fine.
Thank you.
So we have to make another motion. That was tabled, right?
It was
Well-
tabled, and it's the same motion.
So motion, and you made a motion and it was tabled,
Yes.
Yes.
so you just voted on the motion that you had, all right?
Mhm.
Yes. So we don't have to go through, make the motion.
No.
So the motion was made and seconded for 35B. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Item 36, award airport consulting bid. Suggest a motion to award the RFQ Lincoln Airport Consultant Engineering bid to Hoyle, Tanner and Associates, and authorize the interim town manager and/or airport manager to accept and sign all documents.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Item 37, discussion charter revision, section 801/July 31st referendum.
Okay, I don't know if you had a chance to look in your packet, the very back page of this pamphlet here, but a few weeks ago it came to my attention that we had a chance to acquire some airport land acquisition, basically, which was a campground at the airport here at the end of the runway. And that David has told me that we're going to receive an FAA grant for 92% of the purchase price to fund this particular project. We currently have, David, correct me, $20,000 into the project. The total cost of the project is going to be about $260,000. Even though that this grant's going to reimburse us for 92% of this project, we need the upfront money, the $260,000. There brings the charter into play, so where we need over $100,000 to get this project going, we need to take this to referendum. We all got together as department managers and made contact with our town's attorney, and was advised by Andy Hamilton that we do have to go to referendum with this particular item. Therefore, we also listed in the back of your packet projects that we have done in the past that have reached $100,000 or more where we have not gone to referendum. Okay, so the question is, we really have two parts. Is we're looking at a charter change as far as adding that we don't need to go to referendum when it is projects involving TIF funds and grants, reimbursement grants, for instance, like in this case, where we don't need to take this to referendum because if so, it could hamper future projects down the road. So this is really kind of stifled the project here as we move forward because as it is right now, we're looking direction from the council on whether or not we should go to referendum with this. And we've got a timeline around the end of July if we set this right now because the FAA grant is on a timeline too about that period of time, correct, David?
Correct.
So it's kind of a time-sensitive issue and we need some sort of direction tonight to set the election going forward. The other part of this is if we're having this special election, does the council want to consider a charter change, not so much as the amount of money, but an exception for projects involving reimbursement grants and TIF funds? Or should that be a separate item for the fall? So I guess what we're looking for is direction from the council on how they want to proceed. I do know David's worked very hard on this, Ruth has worked very hard on this project, and Shelley's worked very hard on this project, so if you have any questions, here we are.
I'll start off the discussion, but I think first, number one, I think for sure we ought to try to put up a referendum on the ability to give anything that is going to be reimbursed. I mean, that only makes sense. But on the other part, I'll wait to hear what other people have to say.
I think if we're offsetting the actual crunch that's going on in public, and we come under, let's say that we had a $40,000 grant out of $100,000 necessity spending, we're only down to $60,000, which would be coming to the public anyway. We're offsetting that with the grant monies or the, whatever the case may be. And if that puts us under that window or under that ledge, then I have no problem with doing it, as long as we don't challenge the wants and the, I mean, it'd be nice to put it on the corner, but this is a situation with the airport that we can't, time intensive wise. And if we miss out on that, I mean, I'd rather, I think that in an exception now, we should make that exception and allow this to happen, but still make sure that the public has a right to say, okay, fine, that was an isolated situation. Let's give them the opportunity to say yea or nay and anything upcoming. I just think it's not hitting that $100,000 mark, and I don't want to step on public's toes. I mean, that's one thing you definitely don't want to do. But can we waive that now? I would like to think yes, but that's me.
The way it sounds, this is about as transparent as you can get. I think that the acquisition of that land is very important, and I think that we need to, you know, we don't want to step on the toes of the public if we're talking about, you know, reimbursement, so it comes in $8,000, and yeah, I think we put it out and make that charter change. I think that's a very good move.
I know David's worked on this for a long time, trying to get that piece of property. When we say we give the money up front, that's a guarantee, we're guaranteed to get back that 92%. There's no chance of it not getting it back.
Once I apply for the grant, it's guaranteed that we will get that 92%. And we will have 90% of the money within 5 to 7 days. If I notify them that we've done the deal, the reimbursement is on its way. They've told me just notify them, they'll be expecting it, it'll come in, electronic transaction, we will have 90% of that. The other 5% will come from the main DOT. That will take a little longer. It could take 5 to 7 weeks.
So 90% could be done within a week and a half, could be back within a week.
They tell me 5 to 7 days.
Working days, business days.
The only question we have now is if we go to referendum, would you like the charter change on that same date in July? We're looking at July 31st, or do you feel that should be a fall for that language change in the charter to occur in the fall election?
There's going to be a lot in the fall. There'll be a lot going on. U.S. Senate, House, Senate.
You know, we need to move on the airport acquisition at the end of July, because we're going to lose this grant opportunity if we don't. However, I mean, we're having that election, we can go ahead and ask the public for the charter change, but we do feel there would be a more turnout this fall, if that's concerning, if you think that we should hold that particular one off till fall. So we can give Shelley some direction with our elections.
If we don't foresee anything else similar to the airport situation rising between now and the fall, then I would say I'd rather wait till the fall till we get the big one. I don't want to close any doors on us and be surprised 2 months down the road by saying, well, this came up again. You know, it's kind of tough to do.
Can I direct this at Ruth for a minute? Ruth, do we have current projects that are going to be affected by this language change in the charter?
We have 2 grants upcoming that if awarded, they're in excess of $250,000. It is my recollection that these grants, Penquist is gonna be administering the housing rehab grant, and they're providing the match, so it won't affect that. The business assistance grant that we're hopefully gonna be successful with LMJ Enterprises, they need to spend the money and then get reimbursement through the town, so it should not affect us.
So, score the ball.
They are, thank you.
Okay. Item 38, Airport Master Plan Developments / Project.
Helping out, Shelley,
Okay.
38.
37's discussion was on the charter revision, the discussion of whether or not the charter revision would be visited at the July 31st election. From what I understand, to recap, the consensus of the town council was that we were going to hold item number 37 till the fall election, okay? Now, 38 is on specifically the airport master plan. Are we or are we not going to hold that July 31st? And I understood everyone wanted that to go forward on July 31st. The attorney had asked for it to be listed as 2 separate discussion items so that there was no, no doubt on what was decided. So would everyone agree that that was what was decided in one discussion? Okay.
Do we need a vote on that, though? No?
No, all I need is just that you have all given consensus that I am to begin all of the order work for the election.
Okay.
Yes.
Item 39, reimbursement rate for employee mileage.
I brought this up only because I know that it had gone up to 55 cents for the IRS allows. And when I saw 45, I was just wondering if that's something we should discuss and see if it's something for our employees, we ought to raise that sum, even if it wasn't to the amount that's allowed, price of gas and everything. Gas seems to be higher here in Lincoln than it does anywhere else I've been lately.
I can see at least raising the nickel to 50 cents, getting it over that, not reaching that cap that's recommended by the state, but at least we're giving a 5-cent increase over 45 to the goal of someday reaching that par with the state recommendation. But I can see a nickel helping out in some ways.
With the federal government, that changes every year. This year it was 0.555, next year it may be 0.52, last year it was 0.51. I recommend that we do raise it 5 cents, but to be fair to the employees, but to be fair to the taxpayers, that's digging a little deeper in their pocket, and maybe we could cut back on training. The department heads could decide which would be the most important for the taxpayers. So that's my thought.
I'm all set with the 5-cent appropriation.
Yeah, the 5 cent I agree with, and I also am very aware of and very sensitive to the need for training. So I agree that we should be very selective, but I also think that we should take advantage of training when the opportunity arises, as long as it is worthwhile. So I would request that department managers are very diligent about keeping an eye on that. But yeah, 50 cents is something that I can certainly live with.
Is the 45 cents, is that the state rate, or is that just the rate that we come up with?
The state is 55.
The state is 55? Yeah, I'm okay with 5 cents.
Is that just changing the budget?
If the will of the town council is that they all concede to raise it 5 cents, what will happen is I will change it in the budget draft. So when it comes before you again as the whole budget document, then you can either approve or disapprove. So basically, you're allowing me to make the electronic change within our budget.
Item 39A, executive session personnel. So just a motion to retire to executive session.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
Okay. I'll make a motion that for the purpose of changing the charter on the reimbursements, such as TIF, grants and so forth, that go out in the fall. And for the purpose of the land acquisition, that we go out end of July.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, you have discussion, sorry.
I just want to make sure I'm clear here too, because I'm kind of confused. So the way we're doing this is, we're not just going to go right through with the grant. We're not just going to send them the money, we're going to wait till July 31st, let the voters vote on it, and then, so are we going to miss out on the grant though? Is that too late to miss out on it?
No. We checked with,
It's gonna be very close. We checked with FAA, we're gonna apply for the grant and then see what the vote comes in. If we don't get the vote, if people don't pass it, we don't get the grant. But we will be out the money that we've already invested in the studies that were done.
this is 20,000.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Sean. Item number 40, future agenda items. Dave?
I have nothing.
Marcel? Mike?
Nothing.
Laura? Good. John? Good. Item 41.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
Could be 20 grand.